Well, if you're multitasking, please direct all your attention to the following video, a powerful lecture story that will connect to our first speaker, Alphonsine Anderson. Roll the video, please.
I was really good in math and physics. So that was my favorite subject since high school. That's actually how I ended up in engineering. My name is Alphonsine Imana. I am a consulting engineer at Cisco in the US, but I was born in Rwanda. It was April 6th, 1994. That night, we heard like a loud explosion in the sky. We rushed to listen to our radio, and we learned that President of Rwanda, that his plane was shut down. That was the beginning of the genocide. I was 13 years old. I remember just hiding in the bushes, not sleeping at home at night. My dad was like, hide here, I'm going to find another place where we can safely all hide. As soon as my dad left, we immediately overheard the group of militiamen say that they just killed him. I didn't feel the ground. I didn't feel the air around me. There was no wind, there was no sun. I was already dead. Eventually, I found my 3 younger siblings. They were in the orphanage. At that point, I was like, I don't know what's gonna happen, but my life has a meaning. Just watching how one person could make a big difference, I started on my nonprofit, Rising Above the Storms. We work with the homeless kids. We help them go back to school. I could have ended on the street. I could have been one of them, and just seeing them actually dreaming, it gives me hope. Doesn't matter how you do it, making a goal to change one life. Seeing how Cisco has enabled me to do something I love so much, I can't imagine a better feeling in this life.
Between survival and inspiration, there's Alphonsine Imana.
Thank you so much for having me here. I am excited to be part of this incredible social justice event. Just thank you for watching that video. Next slide, please. As the video just mentioned, it won't go into details, is that just that genocide I talked about, that I may not go into details, took lives of 1 million people in almost 100 days. As you can imagine, it's almost 10,000 people per day. So that was just a coordinated and horrific event of the 20th century. That happened after the president's plane crashed in Rwanda, and it just the killings began right after that. Next slide, please. So when I talk about this event and what happened, it's so personal, not for the events only that I went through, but the greatest loss that I endured through it all. My parents, who were both killed, and my 2 younger siblings. I was a part of a very large family, so it was 6 of us and my parents. So 2 of my siblings, my older brother and my younger sister. So I was in between them. They were both killed with my family. So it's just sometimes it's hard to be able to comprehend it and how something like that can happen. But it's just the truth of life, and that is just what it is. Next slide, please. when I share about this, I don't want you to think that I'm trying to make you feel sad, or this is just a horror that keeps, coming back as I share my personal story. I shared it for a reason, because I feel and I'm really grateful for it to have a happy ending. The way I define my personal story, even though I describe it through my nonprofit that I will briefly talk about, Rising Above the Storms, I call my personal life how I found hope. And that is Rising Above the Storms. So this is just pictures of my younger siblings, those you see in graduation gown caps. It's when my three younger siblings who survived. By the way, they were all under 10 years old in 1994, and I was 13 years old. So just being able to pick up and become almost like a parent to my younger siblings, when myself, I was a child that needed a chance to grow up and maybe be a child, but that I was not given that chance. Life just didn't give me that chance. Fast forwarding later, some of those pictures you see, little kids and families, that's my younger siblings who are, I have been able to just rise above everything, and they now have their own families and they have their own lives, and they're very successful. And two more boys that you see on the top right, who are, I call them my sons as well. Just life has placed them in my life along the way. When I was fully financially supporting my younger siblings, two other boys just worked in my life when I was in college, and I was just they were put in my path, and I don't want to say I didn't have a choice, but I felt like I couldn't really turn my back on them. So they became a family of my family, and I called them my kids as well. This is how I call my younger siblings. I call them my kids. So they become five of them, and I call them, all of them, how I found hope. And eventually, I put a picture in the middle of my husband that I met along the way as well. So it's just things that can happen, but these pictures envelope everything that I call my how I found hope. You can go to the next slide. So Rising Above the Storms, it's a nonprofit organization that I founded in 2012. That's when I started this idea. But it's not just a nonprofit. That's my personal story. That's how I share what happened to me, and not to keep repeating just a sad history, but what it made me who I am. I really believe that who I am, if there's anything that you appreciate in me, or that inspires you from me or about me, it's really my personal history and what happened to me. Rising Above the Storms, it's my personal story that I wanted to use, and also just drawing from experience of supporting five kids at any given time. And I didn't have anything, even myself. I really share really quickly how when I was in grad school in the US, which is how I came here, I at any given time supporting five kids, taking full-time credit, working part-time 20 hours a week, combining all that. Every time I was just barely making it, but I knew that it was my responsibility to be able to support them. So that happened, and they are the reason I started Rising Above the Storms. If one person can be able to be somewhat of an impact in the lives of five kids, if you joined me, if somebody else we joined forces, how much can we be able to do? So I started Rising Above the Storms in hopes to share my personal story, like I'm doing right now, as an encouragement that regardless of what happened, if you have been wronged, if you have been, you can do something about it for yourself, and maybe use it as an experience to be somebody else or impact somebody else. So to share my personal story, but also to really work with these kids that we started working with in Rwanda. Right now, we work with the street kids, help them get back to school, and just give them the hope of for the future. So the reason why I do that is because I see myself in the eyes of those children. I could have ended up on the street. I could have been one of them. I could have been hopeless. I could have been lost. And some of the experiences I have been through it. There were so many times I was hungry. There was times I didn't have food for 3 days. And to be here, where I can make an impact, I would forever be grateful for the experience because I never take life for granted. So that's rising above the storms, and what it really is our vision and mission and value, to use my personal story to be hope and be have an impact to those who don't have a chance to be to have anything. So that's rising above the storms. Next slide. So the journey is, again, it's a long one. The reason why it did, it's because I was a full-time employee and I have at Cisco, and I'm still working for Cisco, and working with this, doing my non-profit full-time, it just took more time. The idea first started in 2012, then first approved with IRS in 2014, all the way. So it's a journey for almost 8 years. But just I'm really grateful to everything that I have seen, how much progress that I have been able to make. And between you and I, all Cisco employees, I don't know where it would have been if it was not for Cisco employees, from volunteering, from donations, where more than 50% of our donations are rising above the storms comes from Cisco employees and the Cisco matching program. So I'm really, really grateful for all the journey that we have done and everything that we're hoping to accomplish. Next slide. So how can you, I get this a lot, how can you help? How can you be involved? We always have volunteer opportunities. You can join us to really make an impact in the lives of these children and just change their future, their trajectory path of what they could have if they stayed on the streets. So we always have volunteer opportunities, so you can reach out to me. You can support Rising Above the Storms from donations via Bright Funds, but you can also use Rising Above the Storms through smile.amazon.com, where all the qualifying purchases can be able to, Amazon Foundation can donate a percentage towards Rising Above the Storms. I have been doing it for 5 years, and I can see a little bit of a donation coming through that, and it makes a difference. So thank you so much for this time, and you know, I'm grateful for everything Cisco has allowed me and the Cisco employees. I am really blessed to be part of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for sharing your story, Alphonsine. If you guys liked her session, please complete our survey to be entered for the chance to win one of our books in the raffle. I know we have some time, Alphonsine, so I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. So one of the things I think a lot of us want to know is, you know, what are some of maybe the top social justice issues our kids are in the center are facing today?
Yeah, so absolutely. Some of the issues that we see a lot, again, we work with the kids who are from broken families. Most of our kids, they're single mothers, their parents are single mother, and a lot of kids were born out of prostitution, unfortunately. So just things that trick effect that comes from that. So a lot of the things we see is just you know, food and the hunger and the food insecurity. We see a lot of consequences of that poverty, which is probably what forced those single parents in the street to be prostitute to start with, and just access to education and healthcare that comes with a part of it, among other things that we see. So it's really there's more than that, but those are some of the issues that we really see the kids, and we can see how we can be able to really help support them.
Yeah. And what about during COVID? Have there been any, particular obstacles that have come up for the center? Has it changed any of your priorities and the way the center runs?
Yeah, definitely. So COVID for anybody, our lives have changed. Imagine if you had to go to the office and you have now to work from home, and how inconvenient it is if your home is not big enough to accommodate everyone working from home. Imagine the most vulnerable, how hard it was because they were vulnerable to begin with. So the biggest thing besides hunger, besides them being from poor families and everything, technology became a very difficult thing that we were able to do for the kids, that we are promoting education for them, we're educating them, we're supporting them at the center in Rwanda and at school, just seeing them how we can't teach them remotely. They can't learn remotely. They don't have internet. They don't have smart devices. And by the way, the challenging thing, we can't even if I raise the money to buy those devices for them, I can't, because those are type of families that would sell it immediately. So it just really, we've had to figure out how to make it work, how to visit them in their homes, and we had to change the way we work, and all the plans we had for the center, we had to shift into now, because of COVID and everything, into what we're calling a year of recovery. How can we help them? Those who are vulnerable, now they're way behind. The impact is strong. How can we move forward? That's where we are. And we have a lot of good plans and things that we're doing to really help them and continue positively impact them.
Yeah, a lot of good work that you guys are doing. And just kind of one last question to wrap things up. I think we can all agree, listening to your story and the work that the center does, that we obviously care and invested in everything you're doing. But from your perspective, why should other people care as well?
Absolutely, it's the children. Seriously, I don't think I need convincing to anybody that you should care about children. Those are young people to begin with. They didn't choose to be born. There's so many of us, if we had a choice, maybe would have wanted to be born from a different place than we were born. So those are kids who are vulnerable, didn't choose to be in the positions they're in. And one other thing is that, to me, because of all that, children should be allowed to have access to everything good, because they didn't have any saying into what they are going through. They don't have a saying. So I think that, and as you have an impact on them, you're changing a future. You're making a difference. Watching my younger siblings, how they came from being little boys. So there are two girls in them, and when right after the genocide, people who saw them, they're like, "Oh, you are two younger boys and survived." And I'm like, I didn't have two younger brothers, and because they looked like boys. So just going from this and seeing how they are today, and they are self-sufficient, that's why you should care about kids, and because you care about the future. So that's what keeps me up at night, and for those kids. And I know that it's our responsibility to do that. So I am grateful for the work we're doing, and so join me, and join other nonprofits that are doing similar work as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Alphonsine, for your time and for sharing your story of hope. I know it's always touched my heart and is close to my journey as well here at Cisco.